Welcome to this Java Break with Basis. My name is Nico Spence. I'm the Chairman and CEO of Basis International. And today we're going to have a look at some more good reasons to use the latest BBX. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. Let's have a look at the agenda. We'll have a review of part 1, where we spoke about features and function added to the language and interpreter, database management system, utilities, and development tools. Then we'll have a look at some functionality we haven't covered before in system administration. We'll talk about context for Jetty, and then we'll look at some development tool enhancements, Barista's new Drilldowns, and then we'll take your questions. We'll begin by a review. In the first part, we discussed the new BBJ HTML view and showed you a demonstration of its usage. We also looked at asynchronous triggers in the database management system. And the little example we had was to set up triggers to modify a ESQL file on a target database that was mirroring information that was in the mkeyed data file. We then looked at the BBX image utility, one that you may not have come across before, but that's been around for a little while. And then finally we finished off with some BDT tips and tricks from our Basis engineers who use the BDT in their development of Basis utilities. We've also covered in past Java breaks the new Widget Wizard in some detail. The Widget Wizard generates BBJ object-oriented code to create widgets or widget sets or widget dashboards, allowing you to just focus on the data you wish to have displayed in your widget. There are a series of Java breaks that talk about the dashboard. The new Widget Wizard, dashboards without any code, embedding widgets in your app, and the original adding Basis's new dashboard to your app. Those are available on our YouTube channel, the Basis YouTube channel, and also from our website under the Java breaks. Let's talk now about a new feature added to the system administration. Jetty Web Server Context. It adds context or separation of rights and functionality to web components served up by the Jetty Web Server. It adds the ability to configure multiple web application contexts using a configuration file, the admin API, or Enterprise Manager. So, what are contexts? A context is a place where an application exists. All of your applications are in a single context, but they don't have to be. We now provide you a way to create new contexts and decide which applications are available in which context. You may have noticed a new jetty.xml file that's been available since 14.11. The standard jetty.xml file defines several contexts, the most significant of which is the BBJ or root context that by default contains all of the applications. When you deploy an application, perhaps a web service, a servlet, or a browser user interface app, or one served up by the JNLP, you can specify a custom name for the context. If you don't specify a custom context, then Jetty will assume the root context. Keeping all of your eggs in the same basket or in the same context is easier to administer but does not suit everyone. This would be the right time then for you to create custom contexts. One use case may be that you have applications that your customers access and another set that should only be accessed by your internal staff. You may need to create a level of separation between them so that the external users cannot access the internal applications even if they can correctly guess their names. So this is how you might construct a new context. When you next restart BBJ services, you will have this new context available called My App, into which you can deploy your servlets or your applications. We assign a new context host element which tells Jetty the host name for the context. Your servlets then, for example, would be accessible via this new host name, myapp.juniper. The doc-based label specifies the folder where your static content, such as images or HTML pages, should be saved. So then how would you, for example, deploy your servlets into these different environments, different contexts? You will have to make a small change to your servlet deployment program in order to deploy your servlets to a specific context. Currently, your servlet deploy will contain a line of code that looks like this. You would change that, adding the new argument shown here in blue, myapp, which would specify a different context. Once deployed, users will only be able to access your servlet through that context. One of the benefits that you'll get from this isolation is that creating your own custom context also ensures that sessions are unique and that session data for servlets in one context remains isolated from servlets in another context. Even if you deploy the same servlet to two different contexts, they will not share session data. The same client can access both servlets without corrupting data. Another element that you may wish to control is the deployment of your applications. Up until now, your applications have all lived in the same place, but in line with the other changes we put in place, we decided to give you greater control and flexibility of that too. You can specify a custom context for all your apps, that's buoy and WebStart, as well as web services. In much the same way as being described for servlets, you can control which apps Jetty places in which context, or you can again leave the deployment to the root context. The Enterprise Manager allows you to select a context from the list of available contexts and restrict access to a specified hostname within that context. But enough of me talking to you about it. Let me hand over to Richard Stoller to actually demonstrate this in action.
Here's BBJ Services up and running. As you can see, I've accessed it using the internal loopback IP address 127.0.0.1. But I could have accessed it using localhost, our internal hostname, which will be available to anyone on the local network, or through the external hostname. This is because Jetty responds to all requests, no matter what hostname is used. Enterprise Manager is also accessible through any valid hostname or IP address. Here we can see it running on the loopback IP address, and localhost, and our external hostname. Let's look at the applications we've got going here. We have the standard web services, a JNLP deployment, and a buoy application. They're all deployed into the main BBJ context, which means that any valid hostname will do. Later, we'll make our buoy application accessible through the internal network only. Now we're going to start by restricting access to Enterprise Manager, as we only want to allow access through the physical server. Let's take a look at how we go about that now. We need to edit jetty.xml, which controls access to everything. But I'll remove the comments first, so we can see what's there. The main BBJ or root context is where all the applications are normally deployed. Below that, we see the Enterprise Manager context, followed by resource entries that hold the documentation. So to block Enterprise Manager, we need to restrict access to localhost. We do this by adding a host tag into the Enterprise Manager's context. This change won't take effect until we restart BBJ services later. Now we'll turn to our applications. We don't want people accessing our internal buoy application from outside the organization, so we need to add a private custom context where we can deploy the applications. We'll add a new context tag with a name, a path, and docbase. We'll specify the host name, which is internal, add the welcome file, index.html, and close the context tag. Let's save the changes. Now I'll restart BBJ services. After a short wait, I can reload the page. As you see, Enterprise Manager is no longer available on the loopback IP address. Let's try localhost. There it is. In fact, Enterprise Manager is now only available through localhost. But what about our applications? At the moment, we've created a private context, but we haven't specified which applications we want to deploy there. This we do through Enterprise Manager. We'll go to the configuration for our buoy application. and select the newly created context from the drop-down list. Save and close the configuration. Now, if we try to access our application using the public hostname, it's not found. But if we use our internal hostname, it'll work just fine. We have now succeeded to block Enterprise Manager, and our applications are only available internally. We can apply the same level of control to all our application types: JNLP Web Start, GUI applications, and web services. But servlets are slightly different. We can add a servlet directly to the context so that they are automatically deployed whenever Jetty starts. Here's how. All we need is to add a servlet tag, which needs the name of the servlet, the program file name, and the BBJ configuration that will be used. If we don't specify the configuration, then the default config BBX will be used. After restarting BBJ services, our servlet will be deployed. Now you have seen how easy it is to secure not only Enterprise Manager, but all of your applications. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Let's move on to talk about development tools. We have new Drilldowns in Barista. In the old Barista Drilldown, we had a single table. It was a fairly simple Drilldown. In the new environment, Barista's Drilldowns now give you the ability to use a custom query. And in addition, we've added the ability to hyperlink a column to another custom query or to a program. And in so doing, you could cascade your queries down from one custom query to the next. So the example we're going to look at today is in Add-on Software's customer maintenance program. And we're going to look at a drill down of the balance. When we click on the drill down icon next to the customer balance, we'll invoke a custom query. It'll show some totals for columns. We can also link tables showing the descriptions for various codes. And finally, we can create hyperlinked columns which will drill down into further actions, in this case looking at the detailed transactions behind that. Let me hand you off to Paul Yeomans to demonstrate that.
Barista's enhanced drill down capabilities make it easier than ever before to provide users with fast access to the data that they want to see. Here we are in Add-on Software's Accounts Receivable Customer Master Form, and we are viewing the Aging and Sales Summary tab. We have a balance field with a drill down button, and selecting it presents us with a form displaying the invoice details for this customer. This is done using a custom query. Notice the handy inventory amount and total transaction column totals, courtesy of adding calculated fields. Also notice that we can view the distribution code and the associated description by joining tables. In the first displayed column, notice the italicized hyperlink. A custom query on the invoice number field has a drill down definition attached to the invoice number. Selecting it launches another custom query that displays the details of the transaction. Here we see the transactions that make up the total transactions figure. How did we add this user-friendly functionality? Chris Hawkins will show us how. Chris?
The enhanced drill downs open up and extend what we can do with drill down definitions in a couple of key ways. We have a couple of new fields now on the drill down definition form, so that when I set up a drill down definition, I can say, instead of a simple single table query for my drill down, I want you to run a custom query that I've designed using Barista's Query Designer. Or there's a inquiry program field here now, and if that has a value in it, the drill down will run that custom program, and that really opens the door so that you could launch a form, you could run a report, do basically whatever makes sense to do for the user for the drill down on that field. Since we're able to specify a query ID, I'm going to launch the associated query form here. For an individual query column, for a given column in a query, I can turn right around, given this new drill down definition ID field, and say, for this particular column in the query, I want to attach a drill down definition to my custom query. With this drill down definition ID, we have the ability to put hyperlinks wherever they fit contextually, wherever we want to provide additional drill capability to drill into yet another query, do a simple drill down, or run a custom program. So these two places really extend the functionality, the power that we have available to us for providing those 1 or 2 click pathways through the database. Let's take a look now at that in action in our customer form. That the balance field is attached to a drill down, and we can go here and find which drill down definition that is. So I'm going to jump over then to drill down definitions, and let's call that one up and have a look. Looks not a lot different than the old drill down, but functionally we now know that it's quite different. Rather than a limited query into just the invoice header table, I am instructing Barista that I want to run a custom query. So let's in turn launch this query. What's the custom query that we're running? For consistency, we've given the custom query the same name as the drill down definition. So like the old drill down, the custom query is also based on the invoice header file, but we can see here that we've added a couple of calculated fields so that we can add up the total transaction amount and arrive at our invoice balance. And we can see that Barista has joined code tables with the appropriate descriptions for us as well. If I take a look at the detail information for one of these calculated fields, we can see here that this is where we have said to sum that column, and that gives us the nice down total at the bottom. And on the invoice number column, we've done a couple of things. On the invoice number column, we have once again placed a separate filtering program. This is where we add up to make sure this is a non-zero invoice. But we've also then said that the invoice number column should itself become a hyperlink, and the drill down definition that's involved is the custval det. So this would take us right back to the drill down definition then, and this drill down definition, when they click on the invoice column, in turn runs another custom query. And that one very simply queries into the invoice detail, so we can see the details associated with a particular invoice. And once again, we've asked it on one of those columns to do a sum so that we can see a total at the bottom. So we've gone from a field on a form to a drill down definition. The drill down definition runs a custom query. One of the columns in that custom query itself is attached now to a drill down definition. That drill down definition also runs a custom query. So very powerful. You can see how you can make that go on and on and on wherever it makes sense to drill through the application.
Let's look at another example of our drill downs. Here we're going to look at month-to-date, year-to-date, and prior year sales figures. We can drill down into a custom query, again showing totals by column, and again with links to invoices. This time, however, we'll run a custom program, and this program will be our invoice history inquiry. And of course here, this invoice has already been generated, but we can add comments or we can print the invoice out. Let me hand you over again to Paul to demonstrate that.
Have a look at the sales totals on the customer master form. We have drill downs to allow users to see what makes up the month-to-date, year-to-date, prior year, and next month sales figures. Selecting the month-to-date drill down runs a custom query that pulls invoice information from the order processing module that make up the month-to-date sales figures. Filter programs are used to display the appropriate invoices depending on the sales period selected. If the order processing module is not installed, the user receives a friendly message stating that the feature is only available when that module is installed. This is achieved using before and after drill down call points with business logic. Similar to the balance drill down, we have a column with its own drill down definition that provides a link to a custom program. Selecting the invoice number causes the invoice history form for that invoice to launch. From this form, I can print a historical invoice and I can add comments. Let's have a look at how all this is done. Chris?
Let's take a quick look at how the sales one differs. This one launched a custom program, you recall, so we want to see how that gets set up. So if the user clicks on the month-to-date sales drill down, they're going to be running this month-to-date sales drill down definition. Let's go find that one. This one also launches a custom query, so we can bring that up. The custom query looks at invoices from the order processing module, but like our other query, we've selected, and we just decided the invoice number made sense. We've selected the invoice number column, and on the invoice number column we have again attached a drill down. Now this query also is attached with the filter program, as I mentioned, so that we can filter our sales on month to date or year to date or next period according to which field the user selected. But it also is attached then to this historical invoice drill down definition. This drill down definition then specifies an inquiry program. If we take a quick look then at this program, it's a very simple little program that takes in the key that we've specified in the drill down definition that we're using, the firm and the AR type and the customer invoice number, and it simply calls the same way we would do in call point code. It calls Barista's run prog program to launch the historical invoice form. I'll say just a word here about the order of precedence in a drill down definition. When you set up a drill down definition, you do still need to provide a base table and data key just as a fallback. Barista will check to see if there is an inquiry program specified. If so, that's what it's going to run. If there's not an inquiry program specified, it will check to see if you specified a custom query. If no custom query is specified, then it falls back and runs a simple single table query based on the data table and key information that you've provided in the drill down definition.
Let's finish off by talking about some dashboard enhancements. We can now refresh a Jasper View widget. We can pop out an embedded widget. We can customize the chart's legend label format, create widgets specifying a BBJ record set for the data, enable a widget's capabilities, for example, specify whether you're going to allow the pop-out to be enabled, whether you're going to allow saving. We can also specify the widget's title bar and border colors. We can further customize the pie chart's label format. And we can specify whether to ignore zero values in the pie chart data set. And there's more to come. So coming up in the next release, BBJ 1420, you'll be able to respond to left and right click events. For example, you may decide on a left click event to do a further drill down from one chart widget to another. But more about that in a later Java break. Let's summarize what we've covered today. We've looked at some more good reasons to use the latest BBX. We reviewed what we covered in the first part of this two-part series. We then spoke about the new system administration feature, context in Jetty. And then we spoke about some development tool enhancements to Barista, Barista's new drill down capability. And we briefly touched on the fact that the dashboard is continuously being enhanced. Let's take your questions.